We have three presenters today. Dawn McDougall-Miller. Dawn. She's a music therapist and a fellow of the Association of Music and Imagery. During the 21 years that Dawn has been a music therapist, she has created several new music therapy positions in Twin Cities hospitals and hospice programs. For the past 13 years, Dawn has been a music therapist with the oncology and hospice programs at Clark-Hansen Health Services in Minneapolis. Dawn is also the music therapy internship director at Clark-Hansen, and where she recently began training her 60th intern. Dawn co-authored a chapter in the AMTA medical monograph on music therapy and adult oncology. Is that out?
It'll be published in June.
In June. It's been a long time in the making, but it's going to be great. Dawn finished her certification and training in the Bonney Method of Guided Imagery and Music, GIM, in 2007. I'm very proud of Dawn. Karen Carlson, right here, is a social worker, and what's LGSW? Licensed graduate social worker. She is a graduate. And a CSD. What is CSD?
I'm certified as a spiritual director.
A spiritual director. Okay, very appropriate. Okay. They're impressed. Combining her master's degree in social work with theological training and a certification in spiritual direction, Karen has worked in a number of settings, including hospice and outpatient mental health. Karen is currently working in the Cancer Center at Clark-Hansen Health Services as an oncology social worker, psychotherapist. She works with individuals, couples, families, and groups, providing psychoeducational support, resources, advocacy, and in-depth psychotherapy. She is a wonderful advocate for music therapy. Okay, Laura Clark-Hansen is right here, and she is an MA. You know what that is? Laura Clark-Hansen is the founder of Cornerstone Productions, LLC, a theater company dedicated to producing creative educational entertainment for schools and communities. Laura has worked in the field of educational entertainment for the past 25 years and has trained thousands of teachers, counselors, coaches, and students in the skills necessary to create powerful educational presentations. In addition to her work with Cornerstone, Laura and her husband Paul have co-authored and performed numerous motivational and educational programs which focus on character development and healthy choices. Laura holds a BA in theater from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a master's degree in human development at St. Mary's University of Minnesota. She is an ovarian cancer survivor. Please welcome them.
Thank you, Louise. Well, we have a really exciting opportunity today. How often do you attend a conference and get to hear from clients as to what it was like to experience music therapy? Well, you'll have that opportunity today. And we just want to applaud Laura now for her courage in being here. In addition, we have the additional bonus to learn from Karen, who's not a music therapist, she's our psychotherapist and oncology social worker. And so it's just been wonderful to have the two of them come all the way here from Minneapolis and Madison to be part of this music therapy conference. So just a couple of housekeeping. Does everybody have handouts, first of all? The handouts that you have today have undergone just a little slight transformation. Transformations are being today. And so they've changed just really slightly since the ones that were turned in for the CD they did have at the conference. We'd also ask today that you hold your questions to the very end, just due to the personal nature of this presentation. So we want to know about you folks, you brave 8 a.m. first conference morning people. How many music therapy students do we have? Wonderful. Students? Yep. And non-music therapists? Well, welcome. Music therapists working in cancer care? Oh, wow, that's great. And I do want to say, especially to you folks, that during the presentation you'll hear us use the term music therapy music and imagery, the body method, GIM, and we're going to use them interchangeably, but obviously they're not, and we'll talk about that later in the presentation, how they differ. But those are tools that I use to care. Any GIM trainees, fellows? And people impacted by cancer, firstly, are impacted. And we want to, before we go on, we want to just acknowledge that we don't know what the impact of this presentation will have on you folks. And so there'll be opportunities for you to close your eyes, to experience some of Laura's imagery, to hear the music. So take care of yourself in whatever way you need to do that. Also like you then to remember how hard it must be for Laura to be up here in her shoes and to be telling us her personal cancer journey. And so as an audience, just ask you to really be here for her. It's so important. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Laura.
I want to, first thing I want to do, before we got on the drive from across the team, y'all need to know I'm okay. Because I know, I met an ovarian cancer survivor client the other day, and here was the way I felt. I was like this. And she didn't want to talk about it, and so I was left feeling like this. And so I still feel like this about her. You need to know I'm okay. Today is my 2nd-year anniversary of completing chemotherapy. So, thank you. But I think it's really important that you know that, so you guys can really sit back and relax and really experience this, because otherwise you're going to be worried about me, and you don't need to worry about me, because I'm okay. But being diagnosed with cancer is like an earthquake. And when I was in treatment, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I watched a lot of television. And I didn't watch television dramas, because invariably they use the theatrical device that somebody has cancer. And they surprise you with it, and you're like, ah! Especially if you're a cancer survivor. And so I watched a lot of the Food Channel, and I don't cook. I loved it. I watched a lot of Nat Geo. For the uninitiated, that's National Geographic. And so, because nobody dies unexpectedly, nobody gets cancer unless the special is about that. And so I watched this amazing special on earthquakes several times. The New Madrid earthquake. This was astonishing. Of 1811, its epicenter was in Arkansas. Arkansas, I know, look out, because it's coming back. It rocked the entire United States continent with the power of its force. And there were long-term changes that profoundly affected the face of the continent, and there were short-term effects. That's what being diagnosed with cancer is like. Long-term, Reverie, Tennessee, used to be on the Eastern Bay, no more. The river shifted its course. It is now positioned, thank you, on the Western Bay. And there were short-term effects as well, like, yeah, I'm aware, I'm just going to protect yourself. The river, old money, the Mississippi River flowed backwards in certain sections. That's what being diagnosed with ovarian cancer is like. Your life completely, mine was upended. What was important in my life was much less about my work and more about life. My life became more about my family and way less about my accomplishments. And my accomplishments really became about my spiritual development. And my business came to a grinding halt. And Dawn and Karen entered into my life. And Karen asked me, what do you need from me? Like, what are your goals? And I said, I need a witness. I need somebody who can kind of cradle this experience for me so that I can really dig in. Because this could be transformational. You were going to have to ride this no matter what. And I needed somebody to go there with me. And she was like, okay, because that's what she was a lot of time. And she was my a champion. She was my guide. She became a real trusted soul to travel this journey with. And she became this bottomless well of resources. And she is the one who recommended Dawn. So she got to be at the bottom of the well. Welcome. And I had soundly rejected music therapy, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But we brought Dawn into the team, and then these two started working together. And the process accelerated exponentially because we were working with music, and we were working with imagery, and that surpasses language and logic and all the stuff that gets in the way of really soul searching. And so I thank you both for being there for me, for being here today, and it is great to be here. I'll turn this back over. I was going to talk about a song too. There's a marvelous song. Uh-oh, I forgot the quote. Thanks, I'm glad you guys are keeping me track. Okay, that's what they've done for 2 years. Why should they stop now? I discovered psychoneuroimmunology with these two. In the years of observing survival, says Dr. Rachel Liu in Kitchen Table Wisdom, I've come to wonder if there isn't a will accessed in dreams and imagery that's a part of some basic encoding at the very center of our personal lives. The drive to remain incarnate for purposes unknown to the conscious mind, a sort of commitment of our personal life force toward the particular and the concrete. When I was working with Karen, she introduced me to this amazing artist, Peter Mayer, and his music. This was a phenomenal music metaphor for the three of us as we travel this journey together.
So we'll go ahead and play that song. And throughout these music therapy conferences, we don't get enough chance to really experience music. So if you're comfortable, feel free to close your eyes and just soak in this song.
Shifting waters of the river of this life, I was swimming, seeking comfort. I was wrestling ways to find. Or I could cling to a stone to hold me fast, where I let the fretful waters of this river around me pass. So I found an anchor, a blessed resting place, trusty rock I call my Savior. There I will be saved from the river and its dangers, and I proclaim my right divine. And I pray to it protect me and the rock that lies. God is a river, not just a storm. God is a wild, raging rapids and slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage, a peaceful sandy shore. God is a river swimming, so let it go. Still I clung to my right tightly with conviction in my arms, never looking at the stream to keep my mind from thoughts apart. But the river kept on coming, kept on tugging at my legs, till at last my fingers faltered and I was swept away. So I'm going with the flow now, these relentless twists and bends, acclimating to the motion and a sense of being there. And this river is like my body now. It carries me along through the ever-changing seas and by the rocks that sing this song. God is a river, not just a storm. God is a wild, raging rapids and slow meandering flow. God is a deep and narrow passage, a peaceful sandy shore. God is a river swimmer, so let it go. God is the river swimmer. So let it go.
I want to admit that it's a little close to look at that kind of, or to feel those feelings, and then try to figure out how to intellectualize all this so we can stay on track. So we have a lot of clinics up here, and it might just be us. A little reflection on that song. When I'm working with people in psychotherapy and oncology, I realize, the most basic thing is that when you get a diagnosis of cancer, it touches on our deepest fears. I think for a long time it's been understood that it's sort of the death sentence. And so knowing that, working with people who are having a diagnosis and coming to me, I know that questions of meaning, existential stuff, questions about who I am and why am I here, and all the, the whys about this life, and why me, why now, why this. And I think in my work as a spiritual director and in my training, there were many times that I found poems and songs and kind of meaningful things. And when I'm working with someone, I try to be very respectful of their place, their spiritual ideas, their belief system. And so it's never pushing anything on someone that I don't trust is going to be okay. So this song, I knew about it, and I thought, this is kind of what Laura's talking about. So, and I hadn't heard the whole river idea from her before about the Mississippi and the earthquake, so it was really synchronistic. And what I try to do is introduce songs or poems that might encourage or provide some hope and reinforce what comforts them. And this seemed to speak well to Laura as we were working. Another piece of it, when I start working with people, I share with them the image that I have about psychotherapy that a supervisor of mine gave to me when I started. And it's the image of a river, and that we're canoeing a river together. And it's the person's river. It's not my river, but I know how to canoe pretty well. I know how to keep the canoe upright, or if we tip, I know how to not kind of get lost in the water. That's what they're trusting that I know. I also tell them that I don't know what your river looks like. I don't know where the waterfalls are. I don't know where the rapids are. I don't know where the slow meandering, kind of shallow waters are, where it might take a longer time to keep going. But I try to say that, it's a journey we take together. We get in this boat, and the person is ahead of me, and so that I can steer us somewhat. But we never know what we're going to find, and we don't know what the river's going to look like till we're in it. A little bit about how we got here, the three of us together, because it's very unique. I actually had to call our, not our credentialing office, our office at Park Nicollet that allows things like this and talks about consents. I think about what it is, I can't in a moment. But anyway, I called them and said, so we're going to go and present with a woman we've just been working with not long ago. And what kind of things do we need to pay attention to? And she said, wow, that's unique, I've never heard of that. And so we know that this is a very unique time and setting for us to come together. To have Laura with us is amazing, and part of it is that we had a lot of closure. We were very intentional after we were done, and it was clear that Laura was done at that point and was moving to Madison. We had closure sessions, we did some rituals, got her established, you got established at a different medical setting and facility in Madison, so that our ties are no longer there in terms of a professional relationship. And that can be tough. To change roles can be hard. It can be awkward, and I think there's such grace in what Laura brings and what Dawn and I are learning about how to do this together, that it's working. But I want to acknowledge, as well as Dawn has, what an honor it is, what an honor it was to be a part of this incredible coming together. And then just to recognize the courage you have today, Laura, to come and share it. It can be emotional, it can be vulnerable, so I appreciate that. Our Park Nicollet has a cancer center, and we have a holistic care model, which means we try to, you all probably know what that is, we try to draw from many different fields in our support services team to offer whatever might be helpful to support a person as they're going through treatment, as they're ending treatment, whatever point in the journey they are in their cancer. So in our cancer care alone, we have Dawn and music therapists. I am one of the psychotherapists. There's another one. I also wear the hat of traditional social worker. We have a nutritionist, a genetics counselor, and now recently I've hired a massage therapist who also does acupressure and also spiritual care. We have a licensed marriage family therapist as well as a social worker. So we're building. We're actually getting a new cancer center and trying to look at how else can we help people, not through their brains alone, but through their hearts. How can we elicit that kind of exploration about what this feels like? As the cancer oncology social worker, I basically have two hats. And I only say that I have two hats to people who don't know social work, so which is most people. So I don't assume that people know that social workers can do therapy as part of that umbrella. So I tell people I have two hats, and actually I get referrals in two ways. If people have social work needs, quote, like they can't figure out their insurance, they're losing their insurance, their family system is breaking down because they don't have a place to live, or they're losing their mortgage, or all those kind of practical things, then I get a social work referral. The other hat I wear is one that does deeper psychotherapy with people. And it's, when I see people in that therapeutic setting, it's for a longer extended period of time. The social work, it depends on what their needs are, but the therapy can go on. And a little bit about my license, I'm not at the billable license yet, which is beautiful. Yeah. Only in the way, and I have supervision and everything I need to have, but what that allows is flexibility, and I don't yet have to diagnose somebody to say, Laura has blah, 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 so then I have to see her 20 times. I could just see her as the needs were there and work with her that way. So that really helped. And the theories, counseling theories that impress or inform my work, most of them that I look at or I use pieces of, you learn all these theories and then you get to the practice setting and you think, okay, I use bits and pieces from a lot of them. Family systems is huge. Developmental theories, so I can understand if someone's in their 60s and they've just been diagnosed with cancer, or in their 30s and they're looking at, potentially a life-threatening cancer. A 30-year-old generally should be looking at marriage and, what normal 30-year-olds is that, not dying. So I use those theories to kind of help guide what the issues might be. I also look at psychodynamic theories and grief and cognitive behavioral theories. So, where am I now? Okay. Oncology psychotherapy, people ask, what's so different about that, or what's unique about it? Or rather, the people who do it understand that it's a little unique compared to traditional psychotherapy in a mental health setting. In a mental health setting, you'll go see you'll have some discomfort. You'll go see a therapist. You'll see them for a period of time in a fairly regular, predictable schedule. You look at the issues that might be from your past, that might be in your present, or that are affecting your present, or the anxieties about your future. It's sort of whatever is going on gets to be talked about in that session, or in those sessions. You go for as long as you need to go, and until you're coping better, or you're able to manage on your own again, and then maybe you quit for a time, and it can continue on. Psychotherapy with people who have cancer is a little different in that though it loosely follows the traditional model. I might see people regularly, weekly, and especially if they're doing well, I'll see them. And that's just kind of predictable. Every Tuesday at 10, someone comes and that's who I'm seeing. But a couple of things that are different are the boundaries and the personal transparency. And if you've been trained yet in some counseling, these are huge touch points in what you have to understand about being a good therapist. Boundaries, we have none. No, I'm kidding. They're just really a waste of time. No, we do have boundaries. We respect boundaries. But because, in one sense, let me describe that people deal with the diagnosis of cancer differently. Some people, and I'm amazed, some people, get it, they get the diagnosis, they want to know what's going to happen, they want to know what to do about it, and then how can they get back to normal life. I want to see this as a bump in the road, I don't want to have this impact my life. And that's okay, that's how some people cope with it, and that works for them. It's sort of a problem that needs to be solved, and they figure out how to solve it. And for others, cancer presents an opportunity to stop. Look at my life. What do I need to do? Am I doing what I want to do? It brings up questions and explorations. And whatever path that individual might be on, part of the psychotherapist's role is to figure out that there are going to be, maybe they're like person A, I got the diagnosis, I'm going to start treatment, I'm fine. They start treatment, they go through treatment, at the end of treatment, they lose it. I held it together through treatment. Now I'm done. Now where's my medical team? Now who's watching out? Now what's going to happen? So we know that in oncology psychotherapy, there are crisis points that we predict. Upon diagnosis, it's a crisis. Upon the beginning of treatment, it's a crisis. It's going to change their every day. Every day they're going to have to figure out how they're feeling and if they go to work or not go to work, how are they going to get to treatment, on and on. Then a lot of people go through treatment and there's not necessarily a crisis unless it doesn't work. But then at the end of treatment, like I was saying, if there's trouble, now what do I do? Who's going to be watching out? Is the cancer going to return? How will I know? Many, many questions. And then it can be a crisis at recurrence and a crisis when we're looking at end-of-life decisions, if that's how the course goes. And because of the up and down nature of that, of the treatments of their physical illness, our flexibility is crucial. It might be that someone's in home care and they can't get to my office, so right now I have some freedom and I can go to their home. Not very often. When I get licensed, I won't be able to do that. But I can go to the hospital and sit with them in the hospital and have a session there. They might call me up last minute and say, you know what, I'm just not feeling like I can come in today. Normally in psychotherapy, you consider, is this resistance? Are they not coming in because they're looking at some issue they don't want to look at? Or are they actually really fatigued and they can't come? So we give them a little more room. So the boundaries of space and time and kind of regularity are different. And also the content of therapy. We try to keep the focus on what the experience is like of the cancer. Certainly the past and the future and the present are all impacted by that, but we try to stay with that being the primary focus. Personal transparency. When a person is working in traditional mental health, we are taught, there's some old ideas of you aren't even in the room. It's really just the patient is in the room, and you're there to kind of facilitate that. But you try to not show anything about you that would elicit any questions. And if the questions are asked, then you turn around and say, what does that matter to you if I'm married? You don't share. The bottom line is it's very focused on what's going on for them and why that's important. And the same is mostly true in psychotherapy with oncology, but what happens is because a diagnosis is touching on the most incredible fears that we have as people, that I can't act as though I never had those fears, or I don't have those anxieties as well about being alone or lonely or dying or leaving the most precious loved ones I have. So in one sense, there's a point at which it's sometimes okay to say I've been there and this is a little bit of what I knew when I was there. But it's always with the idea that it's going to help the patient. It's in the patient's interest. So you might share a little bit of a story that you have, maybe a loved one or a best friend or someone had cancer, So there's a little bit more sharing that goes on. We also know that the boundaries of touching really get vague, because when someone's bawling and maybe they're gonna die or something, hugging and holding hands and doing some of those human things, it's okay. And each of us, our therapists, have to remind ourselves it's okay. This is a different setting. And of course, you understand where that boundary really lies, but to reach out and have some human contact is really essential for maintaining a relationship. Otherwise, they might feel like you don't really get it or you don't really care. And I think that's about it there.
And then as a music therapist, obviously these same topics would apply in music and cancer care. Just to talk a little bit, very briefly, about how my position is set up. I cover oncology and hospice throughout Clark-Hansen, and so again, that gives me wonderful freedom and continuity of care. We also have interns as part of our program, and that helps us stand out. More interns here. But we're able to see people in the cancer centers when they're getting chemo. We're now able actually to see people during a high-dose radiation therapy treatment. We can see them inpatient. We can see them pretty much any time. Most of the people who are referred to me for the GIM work come as referrals from the parent or our other oncology psychotherapists. And so we work very closely and I know, as the three of us were talking about it, sometimes in the music therapy and in the GIM, we really stir up the pot. And then they go over to Karen. Help me talk about this huge altered state work. And then they come back and stir it up some more. So it's been such an effective process for people, and really a wonderful addition for me in my music therapy and cancer care to have the GIM as a resource. Okay, so marketing music therapy. We all know what it is, right? We music therapists know what music therapy is, but how do we explain it? How do we convince patients, oh, this is the greatest thing for you? So we know that music therapy is not a performance, right? That's good. We also know it's not entertainment, like the little guys. There is an audio here, they're saying, hee-haw, hee-haw. And it's not just random baraka shaking. So I want Laura, from the perspective of a client, to tell us a little bit about what her initial impressions and thoughts about music therapy were.
I was referred by my surgeon and my gynecologist. She had said that when she had a recent surgery, she said, it was amazing. It was nothing like I expected, and that's the only description that I got of it. And because I wanted to be the perfect patient, I said, okay, I'll do it. Bring it on. I dreaded it. I really dreaded it. I journaled about it after the experience, and I shared things many times with you guys. First time you'll hear it, and I really don't mean to offend anyone with this, but this is really how I was feeling. I said, as the time for the music therapist's visit neared, I scrambled to find a way out of it. I entertained an image of myself nestled in my hospital sickbed, heart like a fist, silently screaming over and over, I have cancer, I have cancer, I have cancer, I have cancer, while I shook a maraca. And I tried to be nice so I could make the music therapist happy. I was sure she, because I was sure it was going to be a she, would be insipid and syrupy. I imagined her strumming a guitar and singing off key like one of the hippies from college. I was so filled with the terror of this diagnosis that I could barely draw breath, so I knew I couldn't summon up the presence of mind to even pretend to participate. I was hanging on to sanity by a slim, silvery thread, and I did not want to be shaking a maraca when I was untethered. Now, having said all this, I have to say, my gynecologist was right. It was nothing like I imagined.
So think about that when you go to market music therapy. That's what you're doing. Okay. What I want to do now is just to really kind of ground you in what music imagery is, what the levels are, because this is a music therapy conference. If we were doing this elsewhere, we wouldn't maybe spend as much time on this part. So, and again, because we don't get to experience these things enough, I'm going to just do a real brief relaxation 101. So if you can uncross your legs, put down your handouts. It's going to be very brief. Sorry, it would be great for an hour though. If you'd like to close your eyes. And as you hear the sounds of this music, let's begin to take some deep breaths. Breathe in, just letting go of all of the muscles in here. Breathe deeply and feeling yourself relax. Taking a moment to check in with your body. Feel any areas of tension, of stress. To notice those areas. And then go ahead now and make a fist with both of your hands. And begin to squeeze your hands tightly. Squeeze, squeeze all the way out to your shoulders. Squeeze, 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 and release. Another time, go ahead and make a fist with both of your hands. Squeeze tightly, even scrunch up your shoulders and your face. Squeeze. And release. Become aware of your back as it's supported by the chair. The chair underneath the floor beneath you. Feel your feet, feel your shoes. Ground underneath your feet. Take a moment to think to yourself, all my body is feeling relaxed and comfortable. All of my body is feeling relaxed and comfortable. Hearing the sounds of this music, just allow yourself to tune in with the sound, a phrase, one particular instrument. Really hear the qualities of this music. Notice if there's any qualities that appeal to you right now. Feel those qualities and feel this music very deeply in that core center place of you. Just take another moment to listen, to breathe, to center. And as the music begins to play, just begin to bring your focus back to the room. Wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, stretch. If you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Pick up your handouts. Short and sweet. We all need that, right? Okay, so what did you experience? Basic relaxation 101. What techniques? This is a sampler. What techniques did we experience? What? EMR, yes. Progressive muscle relaxation. Squeeze, release. Okay. Normally you would do that all the way through the body. Okay. So it's the same for today. What else? Focusing on the music. I call it music-focused relaxation. Anything else? Breathing. Deep breathing. What else? Grounding. Yeah. Guiding for me. There's one more technique. Everybody do it? There we go. Extra credit for you. Autogenic. My whole body is relaxed. And there were maracas. Actually, I think there were. That music, by the way, was called Flow. It's from a CD by Christian Nielsen. And it's actually two of my former interns were playing that song. It was beautiful. Okay, so in cancer care, I use a whole gamut of levels of music imagery, from that relaxation 101 all the way to the deepest level, which would be the Bani method, guided imagery music. So just to talk a little bit about the Bani method, first of all, I would refer you to Louise's presentation tomorrow, Saturday at 1:45. So she'll give you the full presentation. This is only a bit of that. But basically, the Bani method is a non-directive form of interactive imagery, and it uses specific programs in classical music. Why the Bani method? Why call it the Bani method? Why isn't it not just GIM? Has anybody ever done a lit search, put in guided imagery and music? Ever tried that? Okay. You will get thousands of references, and most of them won't be the Bani method of GIM that we know. So by adding the Bani method to it, it really makes it very clear as to what it is. And the training is similar to getting a master's degree, so it's very extensive. As part of the Bani method, I've learned these different levels of imagery, from supportive music imagery, which would be the basic imagery, music imagery that supports imagery. Okay? So in cancer care, I use that a lot. The other day, I had a woman who had just had a biopsy. She was worried about a recurrence. She didn't sleep all night. Okay? We use supportive music imagery. It would have been unethical of me to go any farther into her anxiety, into her panic. She just needed grounding, centering, how in the world can I get through the day until that phone call comes. The second level of imagery would be re-educative music imagery, and you'll hear some samples of that. Use some of that with Laura. And the goal is to re-educate in a way. Often the music is music which stirs up, or music which matches the state that the client comes in. So the client comes in with that anxiety, let's find that music that sounds like that. The third level then would be reconstructive music imagery, and this is where the Bani would fit. I also use mandalas and went through a mandala training in that. It's also used within the Bani method. Here's an example of a mandala, and we'll show you some others. The word mandala is a Sanskrit term, and it means circle.
Part of our support team, again, as I talked before, I did the psychotherapy. So when Laura was referred to me by our nutritionist, the first thing that I wanted her to tell me was why she was coming to see me. Sometimes the answer is, I don't know. She thought I should. But we'll kind of work at that and figure out what it is that they could use and what would be helpful. So we have them I had Laura look at goals, or we didn't specifically do that. I have a form that she fills out right at the beginning. At the bottom it says, what concerns do you have? And those were her goals. She wanted to find someone that she could go to who was not going to, that she didn't have to worry about, another family member. She wanted to be able to go and share her deepest fears and anxieties about what this was going to feel like, and she wanted to not have to take care of the listener. So that was one goal. She also wanted a place that was safe to just, talk about everything. And no matter how strange or crazy the thought might be, to have someone be able to hear it. And then to just offer support as things got hard. And then to figure out what it was that might be helpful for figuring out how other ways of coping. What were the ways that she had employed now, what had been successful before, but what were new ways that might be helpful. Laura and I began working together middle of February 2006 and ended in June 2007. We sometimes met weekly, sometimes met monthly. She and her husband Paul have a traveling business, so she'd be out of town for a month and then we'd figure out when she could come back in and see me. And altogether we had about 20 sessions together. Referrals is another part of what I do so often. And as I mentioned earlier, when I'm working with someone in therapy, I'm always thinking about what are they needing, what are they telling me, and what are they not telling me that might be helpful. So I try to figure out what would be appropriate for them in terms of having other people come in and join their support team. Laura had told me nothing about her experience with music therapy. And I said, you are a perfect candidate to go see Dawn. You gotta go see Dawn, try music therapy. And I think that was helpful to hear one more person say, go try this. And then I also referred her to other support groups. We have a gynecological cancer support group. We have a renewing life cancer support group that it's an 8-week session on delving into how do I thrive with this. What else do I refer you to?
Spiritual
director, alternate complementary care. It just went on and on.
As far as for music therapy, then, Karen finally convinced Laura that it would be okay to have music therapy. And so Laura had 17 music therapy sessions over a period of 16 months. The Bonnie method was used primarily for adaptations of the Bonnie method. And same thing, Laura filled out a form, what are your goals for this, and the set of goals, you have those goals in your handout. So I'm going to read all those to you, they're up here. I would say probably the biggest goal is that last one, that she'd have opportunities to feel and experience safety at a deep and transformational level. And with cancer, anxiety and fear are so big. We live in this fear state often. And so that those feelings of safety were very important for many reasons.
And for the journey that we traveled together, there were several different chapters, but it touched on a lot of the personal stuff. Having cancer brings up a lot of past issues, resolved and unresolved, because you're in a different place with them. So it was amazing to have not one, but 2 therapists to travel with. I'm from a loving and wonderful dysfunctional alcoholic family. I have 9 sisters. Everybody in my neighborhood was from one of those. I have 9 sisters and 3 brothers. I'm the 3rd oldest. And like so many people brought up in unhealthy systems, I became hypervigilant and over-controlling. Life translation, I am a recovering workaholic. I'm a teacher, I'm a trainer, and I'm a retired actress. My background is in acting and theater. I still am self-employed. My husband and I have our own theater company consulting firm. And I have become obsessed in the course of my life as a freelancer with the bottom line. Even while I was doing the performance that I was in, or doing the training that I was conducting, I was thinking about the next week, the next month, the next quarter, the next year. On Saturday mornings, I literally sat down to work the books every Saturday morning. And I asked myself this question. This is horrifying. How long can we live? And even though after crunching the numbers, the outcome was optimistic by anybody's standards, it would spark fear. I've been living a fear-driven life. on so many different levels. And it worked because it would spark this frenzy of marketing and I would, book trainings and I would, get auditions and blah, blah, blah. And it worked and we worked, but it wasn't going to work for healing from this. I needed therapy. I needed it bad. and so I was blessed to be able to hook up with both of you.
Then you add the fear of cancer.
Oh yeah, that's
Amazing how those things show up in our life. As maybe we can
yes.
be transformed. So we're going to do something a little out of order in the timeline of Laura and her music therapy sessions. On her 5th session, this was actually after she had completed chemotherapy and was working with kind of some cancer survivorship issues. We did some work about pre-cancer women and cancer women because she was having really difficulties integrating the two. How do I integrate all that I experienced through my cancer, as I go back into my life? So the reason we're giving you this now is we want you to have a musical picture and a visual picture of Laura pre-cancer.
This is the mandala we do after the pre-cancer integration session. I hate warning music. I didn't share this with you, Dawn, because I always trusted Dawn. Her intuition, her sense of what needed to be done. I trusted her from the very beginning to select what it was I needed and to guide me there. It struck me as I collected my thoughts and looked at the mandala that I drew afterwards that it looked kind of like a cancer cell. That's not what I had intended to draw. I had intended to draw something energetic, vibrant, active, and colorful. And it looked like a cancer cell. It looked disorganized, undisciplined, dangerous, random, and out of control. And these were the very things that pre-cancer woman battled in herself and the world around her. And that deep-seated need to control as much as I could in order to feel safe had been a hallmark of my life. But on a cellular level, I was out of control. And I never knew it, not consciously, but subconsciously. I underwent surgery on December 6, 2000. Oh shoot, I was doing so good. It's called a hysterectomy, oofarectomy. Don't you think it's a great name? Oof, because that's what it feels like. They cracked me open and gutted me like a fish. And there was a surprise inside. It was stage 3A ovarian cancer, or 2C, it depends on which scale you use. My world tilted. And several days after I was feeling better, my husband and I made a decision. Can I get out of your way? Can you see okay? We made a decision that we wanted to do was to do something that was a little bit more creative, maybe a little more artistic, so that we could cope. And so we got out the camera, and we got out all these props, and we took pictures of my surgery scar, my incision with its little railroad tracks there. Isn't it cute? And your mom, your mother-in-law, gave me that ornament for Christmas one year because she teased me unmercifully about complaining about cramps since I was, since I turned into a young lady. And so we took that and gave that to your mother-in-law because we thought that she would be amused by it. She wasn't amused. That's Mary. And so we needed to find a way to be creative and to be artistic with this. And this was kind of our first fumbling attempts at that.
bad attempt, I think. We were talking about wanting to give you what our first impressions were in our initial sessions with Laura. You can imagine what my first impression was. I got a phone call from this woman who was very confident and professional and scared to death underneath and said, I need to come and see you. I thought, oh no, I've only been here 3 weeks. I hope I can do this. And she was saying that she described her situation very clearly and had a lot of insight already. And I thought, this woman knows what she wants. And I was a little concerned that I might not be, and this is my quote, big enough. And really what I mean by that is have the capacity to hold her in some way that she feels held and safe. And it struck me that she had such emotional depth and insight already that I didn't want to mess around with someone who didn't get it. So all of the issues that you can have as a therapist come up in thinking, oh no, do I know my stuff well enough? Because this woman does motivational speaking and she does training with kids who are trying to deal with really tough issues. So she knows how to do she knows how to do bad stuff. So I wanted to be able to impress upon her that I could contain whatever she was going to give to me. And really, I had just come in 3 weeks before, and I'd never been in psychotherapy in oncology specifically. And you know, early on when we were working together, Laura kept us on track. she was doing good. She kept looking at her watch, and I said, I'm the timekeeper here. She said, well, we're almost, I'm the timekeeper here. And so we really had to look at that specifically. What is that about controlling this session where I can be the one who takes care of you? Can you let me take care of you? And so it became a joke. Put your watch up, take your watch off. I will watch the time. And can she trust that? I also know that when working together, even after we're licensed, consultation is a huge piece of getting better at what we do. Because I'm getting my license still, I have clinical supervision, so I would bring Laura's case to my clinical supervisor and talk about what it was that was coming up in me when she would come talk to me. I'd also consult with Dawn, and we try to have a regular consultation time with our support services team. Laura didn't know that. I mean, it says it in the paperwork that we will be sharing information that's pertinent. But that was really important because I think working with her from the start, I thought, this is why I'm in this field. She's doing the work that I want people to do, or that I think is so positive and incredible. And I haven't met a lot of people like Laura since then, but it's amazing. And throughout our time together, I was constantly thinking about what else might help Laura. How might she reach her goal? What's missing in her support system? Who else might have expertise where I'm lacking? And what is she telling me by what she says? And what is she telling me by what she doesn't say? We talk a lot about self-care to our patients. And, you know, understanding that when you're teaching self-care, you better be walking the talk on some level, or it becomes pretty evident pretty fast that you're drawing on a resource that you don't have. So it was helpful to learn how to take care of myself through it. I was very struck and moved by a lot of pieces of Laura's story. They touched on different parts of my own experience of cancer with someone else who's died in my life. And I had to be aware of when that sadness would come up, and when it was my sadness and not her sadness, or when it was something that might be helpful to share with her, or to just keep to myself and go to my supervisor or Dawn or someone else. In this kind of work, when people are grappling with such complex emotions, it's important for me to know, what is my fear? What are my fears? What are my anxieties? What am I going to do with those? When do they get triggered? What comes up for me? And it's imperative that as practitioners we understand those places and know how to take care of ourselves when those places are touched. And I think in our cancer center, we're lucky to have a real supportive support team that we can go to.
And same thing for music therapy. I received a lot of supervision and consultation. I was in my GIM training process as I was working with Laura, and it was just a wonderful learning process for all the people that were involved. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the initial music therapy sessions that Laura had. And keep in mind again that Laura would see me and Laura would see Karen, and that process continued all throughout. So her first music therapy session occurred during her 4th chemo treatment, and it was about 2 months after her diagnosis of cancer. And I knew from the minute I walked in that room that this was not relaxation 101 for this woman. Okay? She knew relaxation 101 completely. She knew how to do that. And I also had the sense that it needed to be an interactive imagery because she was working with music and images already before she ever got to me. And so to start at Relaxation 101 or to start at just guided imagery, directed imagery, would have not to meet her where she was at. I did have an intern with me that day, and it was technically the intern's turn to plunge in and lead. And so I pulled her out and said, no. And we kind of negotiated that if Laura was willing, that the intern would improvise on the keyboard, and then I would do the interactive imagery piece. And so we went back in and we all three agreed on that.
That was so cool. This kid came in with this keyboard, and she just, between you and she and the energy in the room, it was an astonishing experience. It really, I just had to stand up and say that you would grow where let me grow where I was planted instead of apply the agenda that you come in with and, well, this is session 1. It was just truly, I instantly trusted you from that point forward because you heard me. I just wanted to get it.
And so in that interactive imagery, and I was taking a transcript, and all of these images that Laura had already been working on were there. There were angels. There were fireflies that had faces of all the people in her life who had supported her and who had really brought this healing fire for her in the midst of her fatigue, in the midst of chemo, month after month. These beautiful fireflies and the people who they represented showed up. And it was one of those things that as a therapist, we're just going for the ride here. You know, I didn't know the background behind a lot of the images. We had done a little bit of an assessment, but very brief. But it was exactly where Laura was at.
I just want to add that I was so hungry, and I had done a lot of work. Prior to this, I've been fumbling around with, I've been drawing, and I'm not an artist. I've been shooting pictures, I'm not a photographer. I've been working with Karen, doing some wonderful work in the room with her. And so to come to this point now where I had these guides that got it and that spoke my language, and I could be safe to really wrestle with this stuff was hugely important. That's what was the underbed, the bedrock beneath the transformation that was able to take place. And to whatever degree in your heart you want to provide that for people, and you're able to provide that for people, I thank you from the bottom of my toes to the top of my voice.
One word about listening. I know that when I started out in my profession, I felt like I had to be the expert. Like people were coming to me and I had to give them something, and oh no, I don't know what to give them, would go through my head. And every time I get into that anxiety, I could pull myself back and say, wait a minute, I don't have to be the expert. I'm listening to their story. What I need to be is a really good listener. And I have to remember that Laura's in the front of the community. And Laura, as we don't know what we're in. And I had to get comfortable with, I don't know. I don't know what we're in. I don't know what's happening for you. And what I needed to do, and what Dawn needed to do, was to probe deeper. What's happening? What's that about? Well, what did that do? Because we don't know. So to give myself that permission to be a really good listener means let go of the expert. I'm not the expert. So just a piece of that. Good reminders.
So the second music therapy session occurred on a day that I wasn't scheduled to work, but Laura was scheduled for chemo. And so we talked it over with the intern, Emily was her name. Emily, are you willing to see Laura in a different format? No.
Right. And this was a format, this was what I envisioned music therapy to be more about. But we made it our own, uniquely our own. Emily was a young intern, a student, and an amazing pianist, and a truly astonishing voice. And so Paul always came to chemo with me, and I thought it would be kind of cool if we could do show tunes and stuff. And so she brought her keyboard, and she brought all of these huge books of music, and so we sang. We sang show tunes, she sang arias and art songs. This woman had a voice kissed by God. I mean to tell you, I was in this little private room because it was a 5-hour infusion, and I'm in a little private room, Paul's there, and she's got kind of all hunched in there with her keyboard, all of us singing away. And there's other people at the in that cancer center in that unit getting treated. And they weren't clapping when Paul and I were singing, but when she sang, you hear people out there like, yay! And finally we opened the door so that everyone could experience this amazing creature singing. And I have to say, in all my treatments at the cancer center, this was my 4th treatment, my fifth treatment. It was my 5th treatment. I hadn't heard anybody sing. I hadn't heard any music. And I thought, why is this so underutilized? And it's because everybody thinks that someone's gonna come in and strum a guitar and glorify them. we need to find a better way to describe this to people, because this is crucial. This transformed the twin angels of carboplatin and paclitaxel, which were my death angels, into exuberant life by song. And we need you. We need you. We really need you. So I thank you for that.
So Laura's 3rd music therapy session. And at this point, Laura really decided that was a wonderful, the chemo experience was wonderful. She really wanted to do more of the imagery piece, and so we took up with that. And so her 3rd music therapy session was actually her initial body method, or GIM session. And I want to just talk a little bit about this. In fact, we're going to give you a sample of some of the music and description of her images. But the first GIM session often lays out the template, kind of lays out the landscape for the work that the client might have. And it also tells us, is this person appropriate for working within the body method? Is this a good method for her to do her healing work? So we're going to go ahead and play this. Laura's going to describe some of her images at this point. If you would like to close your eyes and imagine her images as she describes them with the music, you are welcome to do so.
This session brought me to a place I had begun to explore with care. My deepest seated fear of dying and leaving Paul alone. A vision of a field appeared in my mind's eye. It was twilight, and it smelled like sage. I saw Paul from behind. He seemed at peace. He stood surrounded by 8 shadows. I was frightened because I was sure I was gone. And he was alone. But at the same time, it was comforting to know that the shadows that would love him and would care for him. And later, I drew my impressions of the vision, and it doesn't translate very well in the slide. It really, but after showing Paul this, I asked him what he thought the shadows were, and very matter-of-factly, he said, "Oh, those are your sisters." And indeed, there's 8 of them, and there are 8 sisters living. I have 8 sisters living. And I thought that imagery and that number continued to come up throughout all the mandalas and the drawings that were done. I thought that was really interesting.
So we'll continue now. Here was the second song of that same imagery experience.
In my mind's eye, I was on my great Uncle Norbert's farm, where I and my sisters spent so many summer days. We were in the cow pasture by the man-made pond. It was rainy, warm, fat, salty, tears. All of my sisters were there. They surrounded the pond with their bare feet mired in the mud along the shore. And I was drowning. My sisters were my lifeline. I knew they wouldn't let any harm come to me, so I allowed myself to drown. In time, I was able to speak. And I said, "I am not dying. My cancer is dying." The session ended with this piece and images of all of my little sisters. They were running and they were playing. We were cleansed and we were innocent. We were able to silly dance.
So again, that was her very first body method, guided imagery music session. And did you notice the progression of images? She started out with, you seen her to the spirit of leaving her husband. And where did it end up? So feeling cleansed, feeling innocent. So, was she a good candidate for doing that? And then the next slide here is the mandala that Laura drew at the end of this session. And it was really fun to watch her after she drew it. And she's like, oh, this could be this, and this could be this. And I actually had to slow her down. Hey, Laura, just let's just sit with this. You might come.
Yeah. Well, it was the first time I had done that, and there she was, and I knew she would get it, so I was out of my mind with excitement. Really was. I had not only, then I could come to Gary and I could bring her into the picture. picture and get excited with her. It was amazing. It was my introduction to using mandalas as a therapeutic tool. I loved this process. I loved the expression, I loved the interpretation by Dawn, by Karen, by me, because they shared their impressions as well. And I think that's part of that personal transparency that you talk about and bringing parts of yourself to it too. So that was very helpful. As a cancer patient, you feel so alone kind of in that experience. And so when your therapist shares her experience or his experience as well, I think that just can be so affirming. You feel connected. The purple asterisks became, you'll notice again, I think there's 8 of them or there's 9 of them. Again, became flowers in my mind's eye. And then the flowers, I was like, no, they're not flowers, they're my sisters. And the downward spiral represented 2 things to me. It was that swirling motion of being pulled down into this void that's cancer, and then the baptism of treatment. You know, that those 2 things juxtaposed could exist simultaneously. It was astonishing. It became the template for my healing and my thriving because of cancer and beyond cancer. It takes on new meaning with every progressive turn in my rodent's journey. I really, honestly believed, after I drew this mandala and I had this session, I believed I was going to live. And I could manufacture that in my head because everybody says, oh, you know, attitude is everything. And they usually follow that with a horrifying story about somebody they know who suffered terribly and died. But attitude is everything. And you just got it. But I knew after this session, I really felt it deep in my soul, I was going to live. I felt clean. I felt hopeful. And all of you who are working with cancer patients or working with someone with any illness, it's that healing power of hope. It'll keep you going when anything else has you down.
I want you to try to practice this word. I've never said this before, psychoneuroimmunology.
Psychoneuroimmunology.
Probably know it.
Now we have to spell it.
That's really the field that is the medical piece of researching the benefits, the healing benefits of this kind of work and the kind of work we're doing in the Cancer Center. Psychoneural, mind, body, and then we know that the spirit is in there also, however that is, and your immune system. So the connection of mind, body, spirit, and how does that affect your immune system? The field has been around 20 or more years. More and more research is being done about how our attitudes affect our healing. The bad part is that our culture continues to say, have a positive attitude. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to beat this thing. And that's great to have that attitude. But what happens is the other side. What if I don't feel like I'm going to beat this? What if I'm afraid this is going to be me? What if I can't be the survivor? What if I'm not the good statistic? I remember one time Laura saying, I feel like I'm in a play. She used to be an actress. And I have to be the one person that gets that part. So everyone in the room is going to fail because I need to be the one who succeeds. So if you look at statistics about cancer survivorship, there are those people who don't make it. And then there are those who do and who does. And we're not sure. But our culture continues to say, or the dominant culture continues to say, if you have a positive attitude, you think positively, it's going to be okay. We are here to say it's not that. There's a study that I shared with Laura pretty early on in this field that they did with method actors, and I thought, oh, that's right, she's an actress. That's what a method actor is. I didn't until I heard the study. And a method actor is one who's given a part to act, like a negative emotion. What they have to do is draw out from inside of them when they knew that, or they felt that negative emotion, and then express it using their own experience of it. So they did a study where they had 2 groups of people, 2 actors, or method actors. One group had to act out all the negative, anger, rage, loneliness, sadness, despair, whatever the negative is. And then the ones who had to act out the positive, happiness, joy, excitement, exhilaration, whatever. And then they did a study with, I think it's the saliva, where they could track your stress and your immune system function. And what do you think the result of the study was? Whose immune system became more effective? Those who were experiencing happy, good, or those who were seeing negative? Can you venture to guess? That's the assumption. Both of them increased their immunity because they were doing what was authentic to them.
it was the authenticity. What is it really like for you? I don't care what people say you should be thinking, how does it really feel? And even if you have gotten good news, maybe there's a dark fear under there. That good news isn't going to last. If you don't express some of that dark fear, you're not going to feel that good news. And in fact, you're going to maybe impact your system. Not to go to the extent to say that if we don't feel our emotions, we're going to get sick and die. But it's really powerful what happens when you feel that emotion. So the hope that we try to bring to people is, it's okay, whatever it is for you. The point is, let's get to what it is for you.
And as a cancer survivor and a cancer patient in treatment, that's really reassuring to hear that if you're scared or you're angry or you have negative feelings, that isn't going to kill you. Because you feel so guilty already, you know, for bringing this on. But I realized I was going to be one of the lucky ones. I really felt that inside. I decided I wasn't dying. That poison that was coursing through my system was going to kill all my fast-growing cells, which is why you drop your hair. Fortunately, I look really hot, though. But I realized I was not dying. The cancer was dying, and that felt really good to know that in the depths and the bowels of who you are.
And that came up that first, that first imagery session. Remember?
Yep.
She said that, I'm not dying. She said it, I'm telling you, the power of this right now. Well, Laura did a ton of work, as you can tell, and so what we have done now is just to pick out some of the key pieces that we wanted to show you. So, looked at kind of some of the key metaphors of the work that she was able to do in oncology psychotherapy and music therapy. And so we're going to talk now about, it was her 8th music therapy session. It was actually her very 5th body method GIM session. And for those of you who've done body method, the 5th session is an often or okay session. And it was very much for Laura. And we entitled this session, The Protector and the Little Ones. I was using a program Death Rebirth modified version of this. And we are going to go ahead and have Laura, I'll play the music again. I'd like to close your eyes and image along with her images.
Dawn encouraged me to find the protector. She didn't have a name yet. I found her. She was aggressive, feral, poised, coiled, ready to spring and kill without mercy. She is fierce, and she is painfully beautiful. She's filled with bravado, which is what you feel when you're terrified. But you stand strong in the face of it. She shows no fear. The terror brings the strength, and it has a name. She's the protector. She is very real. The protector hunted and hunted until she was exhausted, and then she slept. While she rested, the little ones stood guard to protect and to defend. They swirled and twirled, and they planted strange seeds in the tissues, sowing them in the bloodstream, and going places the protector could not. They were prevention. They were pure innocence. And they keep my body strong.
We left out a second song, and it's a 20-plus minute song. It's The Isle of the Dead by Rachmaninoff. So after the protector emerged, and the protector, by the way, was wearing full garb, assassin garb showed up. And this was done in interactive imagery mode. So Laura. Protector showed up in that first song that you heard, and then in that second song, the Rachmaninoff went through Laura's whole body and killed every cancer cell for 20 minutes. It was really amazing and really intense work that she was doing. And then that third song, I would just play the clock behind you, Sue. And then protect her rest and the little ones. So psychoneuroimmunology. Is that a music imagery example of psychoneuroimmunology? Absolutely. And I actually looked up, I was doing some research about natural killer cells, and I found this description. Natural killer cells, their function is they are responsible to ferret out malignant and tumor cells, to attach to them, to poke holes in them, and to kill them. Is that the protector? And the little ones, in doing some research with macrophages, and then doing the work with the natural killer cells, couldn't. Again, beautiful psychoneuroimmunology, the art form.
And it wasn't as though I had done a lot of research on this particular information or studied this. You have to be really careful as a cancer survivor, or as I did, because you get on the internet and you start doing that research and learning about this stuff. And if you don't know it in advance, when you go in, you're not going to start poking around to look for it, because everything you find on the internet terrifies you. And so I wasn't working with a template of this information, but my body and my mind and my spirit were, they knew.
So sometimes in imagery work, images manifest in reality. And so in the next session, Laura walked in wearing protector's boots.
Now, what John didn't say, I got him on. No, you don't want him long, though. And what John, what we didn't mention is that in the induction, Dawn leads you through this whole imagery where, like, you dress this person, and oh my God, she looked like Angelina Jolie. She was like this. It's like, wow, come get him. And so I'm in Macy's, and I'm, with my bald cap on, like, walking through Macy's. I needed a hat or something. And I walk past these boots, and I went, oh, I must have them. So I bought them, and I wore them to that next session. And this sweetest little old lady standing there, by the door, kind of trembling, and I walked past her like this. And this little old lady goes, she comes in and she says, how do you walk in those? And I said, I'm not really sure, this is the first time, I'm not going to be able to walk long or far. I swear to God, she comes in and she goes, they're so sexy. Yes, they are. And I'm feeling kind of sexy.
And she had to wear boots today, too.
Oh, not for long though, Joan. These puppies are getting stripped off.
So as her sessions continued on, the protector and the little ones continued to emerge in many, many different ways, many layers, many levels. We started with cancer work, and it just went deep into many, many levels of her own work.
I was really deeply grateful, and I still am, to both of these women, because they could take me to that next level. They provided me with an opportunity to address my residual childhood issues, to heal from them because of my cancer. Cancer, bless its pea-picking heart, as my mama used to say, marauded its way through my body just kind of like my mom did through our childhoods. Both were dangerous, both were unpredictable, violent, and out of control. In my childhood, my sisters and I were the protectors. Your mom, or your mother-in-law, and my older sister and I were the protectors. And when my mother would start to sing, one of her favorites was Holy God, we praise thy name. Nothing, I don't know if any of the Christians would, but that was one of her favorites. When she would sing that, it was a horrifying sound. We knew it was time to head for cover. We would grab the little ones and stash them in coat closets, we'd bury them in the dirty clothes, or we shove them under the beds. And then anybody who could run fast enough would run. I desperately wanted to get control then over what was a terribly out of control situation in both stages of my life. And both of these women helped me heal the past in the present by looking at the present. Now the tricky part about the present is it's a little bit different. In cancer doesn't sing a scary song, especially ovarian cancer. They call ovarian cancer the disease whispers. That's why women discover it so late. And so if you don't know what to listen for and you don't know what to watch for, it's very difficult to be hypervigilant. Working with both of these women, I learned not only to trust my body, but it also helped me to heal from some of the childhood residual issues with my mother. And I have to say how important that was, because I was coming home. I was moving home. We'll get into more of that later, but I needed to be okay with my mom so that I could come home.
What it was like to be a caterpillar.
Go figure. I'm not saying I get that, but I'm saying so we remember before.
Department of Natural Resources.
Oh, yeah.
Cancer woman looks more full. Yeah, look at the richness. Soft. Could you approach Cancer Woman? What would it be like to approach Cancer Woman in this visually versus go back to Cancer Woman? Is she approachable? You might get hurt there. Some spikes.
Yeah, it was fascinating to me, and what really blew me away was my sister Pammy studied microbiology when she was in college, and she works for the University of Maryland in Baltimore, and she manages, for the School of Pharmacy, she manages their laboratories and their facilities. And after I was done with treatment, she came to visit. To visit, and I had the mandalas hung in my office where I could see them. It's also where I journal, it's where I spend a lot of private time. And the office is in my house. And so they were hanging in the office, and she came into the office and she barks out at me. She's like, "What are you doing drawing cells?" And I said, "They do look a little like cells, don't they?" And she said, she went on to describe all of the elements of a healthy cell that she saw. She said, "This isn't just something random, Lori." She was like, this is a healthy cell. And she went on to explain all the parts of it to me. And then she went on to explain everything that was wrong with this. It's the perfect example of poorly differentiated. That's a grade 3, which is the kind of cancer, a grade 3 cancer cell that is out of control. And I know nothing about microbiology. I'm an actor. I took science, but I didn't know, I didn't internalize those things. It's not part of my daily life. But my sister is. And I think we'll just move on from there. I don't think.
Okay, so we just want to show you one more of the metaphors of her spiritual journey. And this involved music therapy sessions number 11 and 12, is where we're at in the timeline. It's kind of another re-educative sort of music imagery format. And Laura came in on session number 11 think she had just had a session with Karen the day before. Blame this one on Karen. And Laura came in agitated. She was just fired up. And she dropped into the altered state just very, very quickly. What I did with her was to put on the Wagner's Funeral March, which was the protector music. Okay. And so put that on, and I basically just kept handing her paper. She cried and cried and cried, and just kept drawing and experiencing music and drawing.
It's almost an out-of-body experience at some point, you know, standing inside yourself. I did the mandala that the first mandala that I did, we do 3, was drawn in disorientation, and I thought it was a woman like this, yay, I'm done. For some reason she needed to have a big hole in the center of her head, and so I dug a hole and put the circle around it. It all felt very right. And we started talking about it and exploring it after we had drawn all 3 mandalas and discovered that if you put it in this orientation, hello, we have a uterus. Oh, where did you go? The uterus, we have fallopian tubes, and we have some freaky looking ovaries. Dawn kept, you know, she was encouraging me to take a closer look at the ovaries. And so I did, and I went, oh my gosh, it was like a ladybug. And just exploded into a mess when I recited the poem from my childhood, Ladybug, ladybug, fly away home, your house is on fire, your babies have burned.
And when she recited that, it was like her decision to not have children, her ovarian cancer, all of the grief just poured out.
But what really is cool, and you might not see this, is inside, in this orientation, as we spun this around and looked at it, there's a lady inside. Can you see her? Raise your hand if you can see her. Oh God, yes! You get a little closer, here's her face. I did not draw her. I just was like this. I wasn't drawing, I don't know how to draw. Here's her little face, there's her eye, there's her mouth, yeah, she's like a little stick figure. And look at this, I thought this was like some kind of third eye or something. This is where they, you know, cut me open. And I scratched on that with a stone and ripped it open when I was drawing it. And so this is like the power of this imagery as it spills through you. The second mandala, I just drew and started tearing things open. It just didn't, it needed to be violent, it needed to be astonishing. And then the third was, I was very dissatisfied with it and upset about it because it didn't make sense to me, and it had a big black streak in it. And I thought that meant my cancer was back. And that scared me.
So it took another session, as you can imagine, to process this. Because really that first session was altered state, huge altered state work. So next session she came back in, and
I had taken her advice and I kind of pondered what that meant. So I realized they needed to be 3-dimensional. And I waited until we got in there. And what is really cool is if you place the second mandala over the first mandala, Our Lady of the Uterus's face is right in it. And so is the corresponding red circle. This just blew me away. And then, if you take the third mandala and you place it inside the first, the black streak grounds it. It's the wick, it's not cancer. It's the very spirituality that's emerging from this experience. Karen had been observing the beginning of this process and encouraging this rebirth experience during our sessions. I was really born anew. My connection to the divine, everything that's sacred. The black streak grounds the eternal flame to the torn open cervix. This wasn't a singular one-time event. This is still happening. It's an eternal flame. And Our Lady of the Uterus feeds the flame.
closure, coming home. And these are sessions number 15. 16 was kind of a review session, and then 17 was our last session. And so the mandala, this is the mandala that Laura had drawn in her 15th session. And she described this mandala as the new safety shield around her house. It was made up of light, flowers, and color. The shield was an extension of her true self, a collection of love, a wonderful and healthy way of developing boundaries from a place of love and care for her and for her family.
And they're holy and sacred. I would not abandon the journey or the people with whom I have traveled. In time I spoke and said, I know I'm coming home. I'm home. This process is not just about healing from cancer. It's about healing physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It's about forgiving and re-inhabiting your forever-changing body. The earthquake of cancer had altered my course, and on March 14th of 2007, we sold our home, we packed up our business, said goodbye to our friends of 25 years, and the astonishing medical team who saved my life. We crossed the Mississippi River and moved from Minneapolis, where we had been firmly situated on the western side for most of our adult lives, to Brooklyn, Wisconsin, 5 hours south and solidly entrenched on the eastern side of the river. Healing from cancer had shifted my course, and it brought me home to my parents, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, and all their little ones. It reconnected me to the great and total I am home.
The day that you were singing arias and doing all those pieces that aren't GIM, you said everyone should know about this. So the piece that you guys bring that is already so helpful is accessing another place besides your room. And so you do that. You can do that. Relaxation 101. I teach that all the time, and it's so. No. This is
Right, yeah, Laura is a very unique client.
She set us up to thinking that this is what we do.
Yeah, okay, quickly.
I just have a practical question on how you do this in the medical setting, because just for the amount of time, and so what kind of space do you have to do that?
I have a separate room for music imagery in the cancer center. Yeah, so none of these sessions were happening, while she was doing chemo. All right.
I work with people who are at end stage in hospice, and I'm a fellow as well. But a lot of my patients, I just don't have the energy to do that, although I've had a few. But in your situation, do you have more people that are at a point where they have the kind of energy?
Certainly within my cancer center practice, the outpatient cancer center practice, that's where I use GIM.
Yeah.
And I do hospice work too, and I very rarely use it there unless somebody started with me in a cancer center and they're just so hooked into it. We find ways to do that. Very rarely.
But quite a few people in the cancer setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And those referrals again come from here, and we work really closely. Okay, well, due to time, we'll go ahead and stop. If you have other questions, we'll be around.
Can I just say one thing though?
Okay,
For those of
please.
you who can't go through all of the GIS training, there is a level 2 training now specifically for music therapists, where you learn to do the first 2 levels, the
Supportive and re-educative.
That you don't go through the full training, you're not an FAMI, but you do get these incredible skills, and specifically for people who are music therapists. Fran Goldberg and Lisa Summer are teaching that it's an adaptation, but it's incredibly useful, and you can use it that way. And we're doing these trainings out in Chicago now.
So contact Louise if you want information.
No, not for the other training programs.
Yes, just for these. Well, and Louise, you're doing some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.